Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Dude and His Watch. So if you've watched any of my past videos, you'll know that I've been wanting a Monta Noble with the Anthracite dial. Guess what landed last Thursday? So I thought it would be fun to do a review on it, but also really compare it to my Grand Seiko SBGA 283. Let me wipe the dust off there. Because shit, why not? So, obviously these are classic dressy slash sport watches. You can pretty much wear in any occasion. Again, I'll probably just wipe this down as I go here because, that's how I roll. And a quick wristwatch check for today. Today we're wearing the Seiko Turtle Save the Ocean dial from 2018. Still got that on the Tropic rubber strap. Perfect weekend watch. I like to go running, or as I really do, jog walking with it these days. And, other various and sundry outdoor activities. So, here we go. Both these watches are really similar. Prior to getting the Grand Seiko, I actually had an Omega Aquaterra, the 41 millimeter, and the one with the date at the 3, so it was a bit older model, had the teak dial on it. Nice watch. I knew I was going to end up flipping it though, because when I got it and I wore it a while, I liked it, but I felt it was a little bit not too large for my wrist, because I have a 7-inch wrist, so I can handle it, but is a bit bigger than I wanted. I felt like the spacing between the indices was a bit wide. And then also one time I went to read the time in some low light, and the lume wasn't really great, and I felt like I couldn't orientate it. The hour hand and second hand with the lume look real similar, so I couldn't really tell what time it was at a glance. And for that and those reasons kind of mentioned, plus the clasp wasn't great. Long story short, I ended up flipping it to fund the Grand Seiko here, because I always wanted a Grand Seiko. I think you can't beat the spring drive. It's a heck of a movement. And then also, if you're not going to have, or if you're going to do lume but do it poorly, why even have it? So, yeah, kind of ended up going with that. I still had an itch for an all-day, everyday kind of wear, like the Monta, something that looked refined and elegant, and then also had lume on it, because I am kind of a lume junkie, and this one has great lume. So, just getting into like the specs, I know you probably, if you've done any kind of research, you already know what they are. I'll go over the Monta first, and I'll highlight some of the differences. So the Monta has the movement caliber M22, which is basically a modified Sellita or ETA, depending on what they can get for supply at the time. The Grand Seiko is the spring drive 9R65. So with the movement and the Monta, they call it an M22. It's self-winding, mechanical movement, bidirectional rotor. It's manufactured, assembled, and tested in Switzerland. The power reserve on that is 42 hours. With the Grand Seiko, you have a larger power reserve of 72 hours. Also, the Monta, they regulate it basically within COSC, and so that's kind of like +5, -3, something like that. And it's been staying within there. The last couple days I've had it, I'd say it's about +1 second a day. Oh, got a little dusty dust on the glass. So the accuracy on both of these watches is really good. The accuracy with the Grand Seiko listed as +15 seconds per month, basically +1 second per day. This gains about 1 second every 2 weeks, so I really don't have to adjust it too much. So the Grand Seiko and my Tudor Black Bay 58, those are definitely the most accurate watches I have. As far as the dimensions on them, this is something that's real nice with the Monta. The case diameter for this one is going to be 38.5, and then with the Grand Seiko, it's right at 39 millimeters. So, looking at them kind of up close, you don't see too much of a difference in the case size. They will both wear pretty about the same. We'll go over some more of that there because there are some things with like, especially the thickness, and I wanted to talk about that. With the Grand Seiko, the lug to lug is 46.8 millimeter. It's lug to lug on the Monta, and again, lug to lug is this difference or distance here. On the Monta, it's 47 millimeter. Lug width on the Monta is 20 millimeter, and then the lug width on the Grand Seiko is 19, which I did a couple months ago try to put a 20 millimeter strap on there, so it wouldn't quite fit, and yeah, it's definitely 19. Kind of unfortunate because I don't have any 19 millimeter straps, but whatevs, pretty much lives on this bracelet. Looks great there too. One of the main things though, like the thickness, oh, by the way, the lug to lug here, if I didn't mention it, is 46.8, but I wanted to get to the thickness because the thickness with this one is 12.3 millimeters. And then with the Monta, big difference at 9.7. So just to get a little bit closer on that there. And then you can see a difference with the case finishing as well. So with the Monta, it's more brushed case finishing. The Grand Seiko is, highly polished, that mirror-like Zaratsu, which you can even see the reflection of the Monta and the case profile there, which is pretty sweet. The chamfer on the case for the Grand Seiko runs the length of the case. It's very nicely done. There's a crisp transition into the brushing on the top. Here you can see how it goes from, again, one lug length or one lug end to another along the side of the case. Again, a nice smooth transition into the brushing on the top. So the case finishing on both these are really well done. I've had the Grand Seiko for longer, so you will see some scratches in the bezel going around here. Again, both of these are smooth. This one shouldn't have any. I've worn it a couple times, worn it once to work, been very careful with it because again, I just got it last Thursday. The crown sizes, I think, look very similar. Both are signed crowns. Here you have the Grand Seiko logo engraved. Monta, there's this kind of laser etched in there, but they've done it really nicely. I really like both these watches. They're both great everyday wears for me. Very accurate. Great bracelets on both of them. Some of the design differences here that I've noticed, and one thing that I'll echo like other reviewers as far as the Noble, if you look at the lugs on the case here, kind of compare them to the Grand Seiko, see the Grand Seiko goes in like this, kind of comes down more towards the bracelet, whereas these, they just kind of square off. So they're a good length, I think, but they could be a little bit more narrowed out towards the bracelet. That would give it a more of a, I think, elegant look. Because as is, if you just look at it, the watch head straight on, it does get kind of squared off. So it's almost like a circle instead of a square, which I think if you look at the new Black Bay 54, their 37 millimeter Black Bay, I think it gives kind of a similar look. Here, you'll see the lugs are more, I'll say, like elegantly slimmed down towards the bracelet, which I like. Kind of gives it a more, I'll call it sleek look. And as far as the wear, I don't think I have the weight for the Monta. It is lighter than the Grand Seiko. And then again, something I did want to mention about the thickness. This is going to be the thickest watch I've ever had and worn. I'm really used to wearing divers, so whether it's the Black Bay 58, the Oris Aquis, or any of the Seikos, which those are some thick boys, the Monta is a lot thinner than all those, including the Grand Seiko, and that's one of the major differences between these two, along with the loom and the movement, and to an extent the casework and detail. They're both really well done. I can't knock them both on the case finishing or the bracelet finishing. Looking at how the Monta wears, and something to mention about the bracelet too, it's real well done. brushing, high polish chamfer on the side, and then brushing on the side. This is the clasp where it comes in here. Can sometimes be a little bit stiff. So as you can see, here we go. And then here you have the clasp, Monta engraved on the inside, milled out. Got the little circle here that goes in here. This is sometimes hard to push down. You really got to give it a good push and you get that solid click. Put that in and you're good to go. With this, you do have the micro adjust is in, oh, and this is another thing, another reason I wanted to get this Noble. You have the on the fly micro adjust here. Let me get this in focus. So you can move it down, up as your wrist swells. I tend to have it up here sometimes, especially on a hot day like today. But typically down here, that's how I sized it. And let's get a wrist shot of this bad boy. Yep, really push in there. And here we go. Again, I have a 7-inch wrist, so I think it wears really well. It doesn't overwhelm my wrist. It has really good presence. Just a beautiful everyday watch. Give you the wrist roll to the clasp, the Grand Seiko under there. So let's put the Grand Seiko on, get a little wrist action with that sucker. Grand Seiko, same thing. Great wrist presence. A little bit bigger in diameter, not too much. Major differences again with the Grand Seiko and the Monta. No loom on this one. Really sharply done dial and handset. Obviously this is going to be, you know, higher end or more well done than the Monta. It should be. It's, you know, this is about a $3,000 watch. The Monta retails for $1,700. So you got a lot of difference in there. They both have AR coating that work pretty well. But yeah, just a beautiful, beautiful watch, beautiful wearing experience. And also another reason I'm glad I got the Monta is I'm kind of dive watch heavy. And I did need something a little more everyday, you know, elegant, lightweight. You know, something that with that width of the case, and a lot of people mention it sort of adds to the elegance of the wear, the wearability experience as far as it, you know, just being more trimmed down. And that's something I hadn't really experienced until I got this one. And now I know what people are talking about. Like, okay, yeah, having a thinner watch case does make a big difference in how it wears, how it looks. It does look a lot smaller in comparison. That took a minute to get used to. But the comfort level is just fantastic. And again, this is a great bracelet, which you've heard in other reviews. But I just thought, you know, comparing it to the Grand Seiko would give you an idea of how they wear similarly, the differences in them. Another difference with these two is going to be the water resistance. So, you know, it's something I forgot to mention earlier. With the Grand Seiko, oh, another thing too is it is anti-magnetic, the spring drive movement. Whereas I was trying to look up what the ETA and Solita variants would be on the Monta. Couldn't find anything on it, so not really too much. But with the water resistance though, let's see here. The Grand Seiko is 10 bar, 100 meters, 328 feet. So you can get it wet, you can go swim with it. Same thing with the Monta. The Monta is a little bit more. So with the Monta, let's see here, I believe it's 150, yeah, 150 meters, 500 feet. So either one, great everyday sports watch. You can really wear them for all occasions, you know, from the beach room to the boardroom, right? They both have the anti-reflective coating, done really well. The sapphire crystal on the Monta, it's a flat beveled sapphire crystal, and it has 7 layers of anti-reflective coating. So you can see how it plays in the light. does really well. Just a beautiful watch, and one that I'd wanted for a long time. And I think one of the digs, I'll call it, against Monta is the price. You know, they retail for $1,700. If you can get them on the used market for less, great. But I think, honestly, side by side with the Grand Seiko, you know, looking at the comparative specs, levels of finishing, the quality, you do get what you pay for. And I'll say that with both watches. You know, again, Grand Seiko more like a $3,000 watch. But the Monta does not look out of place. It doesn't get utterly just stomped on by the Grand Seiko. So I think for someone that's looking for that quote-unquote entry-level, you know, luxury piece, if I were to, you know, my first one was the Oris Aquis. If I were cross-shopping that, so, you know, as you might with the Monta, the only thing between the Monta and the Oris has that brand history, which might or might not be a thing for you. Maybe with your first luxury purchase, that might factor in there. Oh yeah, people complain about the clasp on this being a little long. Again, 7-inch wrist, so not really an issue for me, but yeah, it's a little bit longer compared to the Grand Seiko. So maybe. This does right here, you can see the point on the clasp here. It does kind of dig into that link right by it, so you'll get a scratch on that whether you want to or not. But oh yeah, here's the Monta movement. I'm not going to undo the bracelet so you can see it, but oh, and that is a sapphire case back as well, so that's fun. See-through case backs are always fun, whether it's your first watch, your first mechanical automatic, or if in this case it's probably somewhere near my 50th with all the watches I've had in the past that I've flipped over time to get something better, and always changing my collection, especially as I move up market. I'm telling you, if I would have started doing reviews of the very first watches I had, I'd have a much larger channel by now, but you know, I don't post much. I got a wife and kids and a job. I'm very busy all the time, so I do what I can. But again, both beautiful watches, look great side by side. I'm glad that I finally have a dark dial in the collection for a little more, I'll say, use. Like it's a little bit more, wears well with everything. What's the word I'm looking for? You'll think of it for me. Oh, and for those who care, here is the Monta packaging. It's very nice. Better than the, well, not the Grand Seiko packaging. It's pretty good. But you don't get a box like this with the Grand Seiko. So it is a nice box. Comes with everything. There's the inside. Got your warranty card. So this is from April of 23rd this year. So yeah, the guy on the listing, because I got this off eBay, this is another eBay find for me, said he'd barely worn it, which definitely he had not. There was even still some stickers on there for me to take off. But yeah, great packaging, one extra link. So that's how I size it for my wrist. I did notice I had to put more links on the 12 o'clock. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus your half link here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 full links, and then the half link, make 5 on the 6 o'clock. And I found that the way my wrist is shaped, this is how it wears the best. So there it is, guys. Finally got the Monta Noble. Now I'm gonna have to sell some watches for that, but definitely not mad about it. So another great one in the books. Like, comment, subscribe. Put your thoughts and feelings on this watch, the Monta versus the Grand Seiko. Yeah, I think it's a good comparison. And I'll see you guys in another video.